invite the Waitakiri Eco Sanctuary, Colin Muke. Kia ora.
We're going, are we?
You're all good to go. Yep. It's
Yep.
Green, as long as the green light. Yep.
Kia ora koutou, hello again. This is about the biodiversity of the city and the promotion of this as part of an eco-city brand for the city, and in particular the role of Waitakiri Eco Sanctuary as a vital part of achieving that. Canterbury needs multiple eco-sanctuaries, and my colleague Bruce will follow on, incidentally, Bruce White. Canterbury needs multiple eco-sanctuaries, just like many of the other major cities and regions of the country. Canterbury is the single largest region without this personal experience of its charismatic endangered wildlife. This is our birthright that we're missing out on here. Waitakiri would be the first of a network in Canterbury, a stepping stone through space that will fuel the halo effect to surrounding habitats and landscapes. We need the added value associated with a predator-proof environment and forest for bush birds in particular, not just more of the same species-poor eutrophic wetlands, which is what we're going to have a huge amount in abundance into the future, and already have, which is wonderful, but it's not the full quid. It will be a stepping stone through time to a predator-free New Zealand, and I just heard on the radio the government's announcing a major injection of funding into this. We need to be part of that. We need to be ready to get some of that central government funding, and also for things like the billion trees. It's also related. This will be the heart of an ecosystem city. Every other city is now beginning to call itself a wildlife capital. We're missing out. This is the basis for attracting valued people to New Zealand and retaining them here as citizens. But we have all these assets here ready to go and to develop. We've got a lot of biodiversity, but it's invisible to most people. But these are the core values a place needs, a connection to its unique natural and cultural history, and both are embodied and nourished by an eco-sanctuary concept. You can read the next bit yourselves, but it's a concern about Christchurch's future relevance, and I have some deep concerns about this. And I would ask, would anyone contradict us in saying that Travis Wetland showed the kind of foresight we need now, and this project will be building on that legacy and to build on this successful model. We need to lead the way in biodiversity promotion through these other initiatives like the Christchurch Biodiversity Partnership, the 360 Trail, a strong ecological landscape planning, and so on. I'll now pass over to Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. I'd just like to mention 4 points. And Travis Wetlands that Colin raised, the council purchased the land for Travis Wetlands about 22, 23 years ago, and that's an ongoing project. Thank goodness they did. And of course, the land for Travis is not too much different to some of the other land that's now red zone, particularly through Bexley. So there was considerable foresight, and Travis has strengthened year by year with the plantings and the wildlife there. The other point I'd like to reinforce that Colin mentioned is the halo effect, and how important that is my understanding, and Colin's the ecologist, I'm the sort of everyday guy, but how important that is when I learnt about it, that we need a sanctuary to provide a protected habitat that then spreads out. That's the halo, and it will enhance whatever plantings end up going along the Avon corridor, if you like. So it's an essential part of it. The third point I just want to mention is funds, and we know there's pressure on funding, and I don't seek to have a funding discussion, but certainly funding for the red zone must be part of this. And it's not a huge amount of funding we're talking about for the eco-sanctuary side of it, but funds must be set aside. And the fourth point about the eco-sanctuary in particular is, just like Travis Wetlands, is it's about harnessing the contribution of the community. And so it's not about having contractors in and doing all sorts of stuff with them. It's about resourcing the community to actually enhance the community. That's all I have to say. We're open to questions.
Excellent. Phil?
Thank you very much, and that's a good summary of you altogether. I just want to, one of the comments you make, Colin, is you make reference to interim stock banking. Just wonder if you might elaborate on that and as a comparison to what might be future, possibly permanent stock banking.
Yes. We're aware that there's a lot of concerns that are being expressed around council offices and Regenerate Christchurch about all sorts of problems with this sanctuary and its location. And one of them deals with sea level rise, of course. Now, we would see that, as the Mayor has just pointed out, the council is not going to be walking away from the eastern suburbs anytime soon, and they're going to be looking to maintain those communities and the assets that are there, including ones that have been just recently constructed. So, in order to do that, of course, we're probably going to have to kind of ensure that there is appropriate protection for some of the more vulnerable areas, including stock banking. And so the sanctuary would just be one of those assets within that broader area that will need to be looked at the way in which that can be best protected. And of course, that major highway, you know, that goes from North Canterbury to Littleton it goes past or through the sanctuary area. So we're obviously not going to walk away from that either. So that's what that relates to, the need to ensure that appropriate stock banking, and it's not just allowed to flood back into salt marsh or something, as lots of other areas of the red zone will be.
Thanks, Colin. And if I may, just a supplementary question, you refer to the resilient city needing to be realistic about future global trends, and you also say we can't afford to be Rolls-Royce, smooth is good enough, but we need to deal with the big, massive potholes. Yeah. I just wonder if you might elaborate on that a wee bit too, as to what you mean.
Yeah, well, that's a huge question. I mean, we're talking about sort of, you know, major trends economically, resource-wise in the future, and I mean, my own take as an ecologist who has studied this and is running a course at the WEA this coming week, is that things are going to be changing. We are going to have to kind of be more relaxed in the way we manage things and not pour heaps of money into unnecessary activities. We're going to have to kind of be more modest in our call on the environment and on the amount of expenditure. We're all aware that no one's got a lot of money floating around here. And so it's really part of that. It's about being more rational about the way we manage these resources and not believing we've got to kind of go Rolls-Royce into it. Maybe Bruce wants to elaborate, I don't know.
Look, I was just going to add to the first question, and the land that we're seeking for the eco-sanctuary is actually higher land than Travis Wetlands. And the need that Travis Wetlands has is some higher ground for retreat of the species in times of flood. So it's not for lower ground, it's for higher ground.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce.
Glenn?
Oh, thank you. Just wanting to join a few dots. You know, Minister Jones talks about the 1 billion trees. We have an opportunity with the residential red zone, carbon sink, etc. Your plans, how would you go about setting up a framework to go about that?
Well, as Bruce just said, one of the important points about the red zone between Travers Road and the river is that it's higher ground. It's been filled, and you know, we can grow trees on that into the, you know, medium-term future, and that's what a sanctuary and that's what the green spine needs, not just more Raupo and Harakiki, as nice as that is, but we need that taller forest environment and sort of predator-free in order to let our sort of iconic bush birds kind of flourish there.
Yep, Dion?
No, I think Glenn just covered the question I was going to ask.
Okay, fine. Yanni?
Thank you. Again, just referring to submission on page 95 of our agenda, it's the point you make about prioritising land drainage. you say if it fits with an integrated catchment management approach, then yes. Have you got anything that gives you comfort that that is happening or that that isn't? And is there a more specific request that you might make of us in regards to how we do the planning?
About the planting, sorry?
As in your submission, you talk about the need for an integrated catchment management approach.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering where that's come from and whether we need to allocate resources to seeing that done, or whether it's being done, or why you've put that in there effectively.
I think it's more about getting the right advice and right information at the beginning. You know, often ecology is the last cab off the rank. It's kind of consulted after all of the big engineering decisions have been made, and often it's then too late to have a more sort of balanced approach to the plan. And I see this constantly. You know, a classic case would be the proposal to weave treaty symbolism through the middle Avon River, through the central city, representing, you know, the English parkland on the one hand and the kind of indigenous forest on the other, and it was scotched by drainage engineers who believed it would raise the flood level. Well, we could observe at the last big flood, middle of last year, that actually it was the bridges that were the main obstacle to water flow down that catchment, and it had nothing to do. And so as a result, we've ended up with, you know, a sort of bad, half-baked decision about the catchment management there. So that's the kind of example that I'm sort of talking about. You know, we need to get more expertise around the table at the beginning, not at the end.
That's great. Look, thank you both very much for your contribution, as always. Very well thought through and well presented, so thank you very much.